Alrighty, looks like we've got a few still coming in, but just like to kick off. So, welcome everyone. Great to see some new and familiar faces joining us today. Uh, just a bit of housekeeping. We are recording today's webinar and we've enabled the mic and cameras so that basically you can ask questions in the Q&A at the end, but also feel free to pop any questions in the chat or the Q&A section at the top of your screen as we move through. And we'll come back to them during the Q&A if we need to. Obviously, we've got some subject matter experts on the line today. Firstly, just looks like we've still got a few more coming in. I would like to just initially begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past and present. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel Wortman. I'm the National Marketing and Promotions Manager here at AgriProve. It's a pleasure to host today's webinar. Smarter Farms with CERES TAG, Unlocking Insights with the AgriProve Marketplace. For those of you who have joined our webinars, excuse me. For those of you who have joined our webinars before, you know that we have a initial structure that we like to follow, and basically we like to give a portfolio update from AgriProve and where we're up to as a company, and then we would like to then hand over to our experts that are on the line. So it was great to have the CERES TAG team online today. Sorry, I think my laptop is just freezing a little bit. The main thing we also want to just reiterate today is just making sure that you do stick around to the end of the webinar, as we will have a special offer for everyone in attendance. And now that we've got the sort of formalities out of the way, let's jump into the webinar and the update, portfolio update. So, quick overview from an AgriProve portfolio point of view. For those of you who have been following AgriProve for a while, this map should be pretty familiar to you. But just quickly, the green dots are registered soil carbon projects. The orange dots are projects that have had measured increases in soil carbon. And the red dots are projects that have been issued ACCUs. Basically, these dots represent 75% of all the soil carbon projects within Australia. Over 800 of the there's over 800 projects there on the map. The hectares covered by those are over 150,000. The ACCUs issued to those red dots, the red projects, is over 60,000 ACCUs, which is a great result to those partnering landholders and a great reward for effort that they've been doing on their farms. And then the yellow dots are basically waiting for 190,000, over 190,000 worth of ACCUs to be issued to their projects and their farms. So we're expecting them coming online really soon as well. So basically, at the AgriProve team, we understand that there's increasing sustainability challenges for farmers, and the rising costs are squeezing already tight profit margins. The unpredictability of weather is continuing to sort of threaten farm productivity and threaten yields. And there's also increasing pressure to adopt sustainable practices without a clear financial benefit to the farming bottom line. At AgriProve, we think there's an opportunity to really boost your income with healthier soil and by earning carbon credits from sustainable practices, leverage your income and reinvest the ACCU income into your operation. And then sustainable farming, we see it as a productive and profitable way to improve your farm, working smarter, not harder, and basically leading to better soils, better farms, better profits for Australian farmers. So for those of you who haven't seen or just need a little reminder, the AgriProve platform launched back in December of 2024. For those of you who haven't created an account, just would give you a recommendation to log on, create your account. Takes less than the time to boil the kettle, and you can start to access the features shown on screen here. Um, just a quick high-level overview of each of those features, just to give everyone a bit of background for the newcomers. Once you create your account, you get a nice project dashboard and map functionality to locate your farm. You can do an initial emissions assessment and climate risk assessment of your farm. You can also use our soil carbon forecaster to select the parcels of land that you are considering for a soil carbon project, and see how many ACCUs potentially you could earn, given your rainfall and location. And that's for people considering a soil carbon project. The next feature, the integrated soil sample data, is specifically for our soil carbon farmers. As part of your dashboard, you'll be able to see all of your soil sampling results within your dashboard, and be able to click through and see the results for individual soil sample points. The AgriProve Insights engine enables you to do some comparisons against industry standards, and also provides you with some recommendations of ways that you could potentially either improve that, basically improve your farm in terms of the standing of that industry average and where you're positioned. But the one at the end, which is very, very new and only launched in the last sort of couple of weeks, is the AgriProve Marketplace. So we're really, really excited about this new feature, and basically it provides our partner landholders the ability to pay for ag tech and services with future ACCUs carbon credits. So as you can see in the short demo on your screen, you can access the marketplace through your AgriProve platform account. It's very simple. You select the product you're looking at, select the payment type, so either cash or future ACCUs or a mix of both. And basically, that's how you get started with the marketplace. So very simple. Yeah, again, just selecting the product, going through how you would like to basically pay for them, and then yeah, you're on your way. I suppose some of you might be wondering how exactly this works from a functionality perspective. So basically, from a high level, how a soil carbon project works: you register your carbon project, you sequester carbon, you earn ACCUs, and then you sell or hold those ACCUs. So now that we've got the marketplace up and running and live, you can now see that there's additional elements to it. So basically, you register your soil carbon project, and at the next stage, you're now eligible to be able to spend your future ACCUs for those ag tech and ag services that are going to be listed on the marketplace. Then you earn your ACCUs, basically with the additional insights and that you're getting from the tech or services that you've secured earlier in the piece. You're getting more data, better insights, better decisions, and then optimally leading to increased productivity and profitability for the farming operation and for the soil carbon project. And then once those ACCUs are issued, basically that's when you pay back the carbon credits that we allocated for those ag tech and services. So the two initial products listed on the AgriProve Marketplace are the CERES TAG Ranch Starter Kit and a 24 pack box of the CERES Ranch Starter Kit. Both of these products come with free access to the AgriProve ReadyGrade software, which showcases and provides insights from the data collected by the CERES TAG devices. For more information on the ReadyGrade software, you can head to our website, or you can book in a time for a live demo with one of our team. And just as a special sort of inside scoop for being here today, we'll also be listing the OptiWeigh livestock weighing technology on the marketplace as well in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. So basically, great to have the CERES TAG team online today, and Dr. Ben Allen here to discuss the CERES TAG products and devices and how they are really beneficial on farm. But I'll hand over to Ben just to give a bit of an intro to himself. I know he's got plenty of experience in the space, but great to have you online today, Ben, and welcome to the AgriProve webinar.
Thank you. Thanks to AgriProve, and really enjoying the partnership that CERESTAG has with AgriProve, and we're very proud to be, the first thing up on the marketplace. I think it indicates that how strong that partnership is, and the benefit that CERESTAGs can bring to people who are already thinking about soil carbon and more environmental stuff in general. My background, for those of you I'm not familiar with, is I worked in government for 10 years. I got a bunch of degrees, and I worked for government for 10 years in the invasive species sort of space, managing things like pigs and rabbits and wild dogs and dingoes and stuff like that. And then I went to university and worked for University of Southern Queensland for 10 years, managed the wildlife research department there. During that time, we were doing a lot of work for industry in the environmental sector for transport or energy or agriculture in that sort of environmental management space, and had been using CERES tags for many years until university system got the better of me, and I left USQ and moved to CERES tag. So my role within CERES tag is almost like a trainer or extension or adoption sort of person to basically teach people how you use this new technology, which we've never had access to before, like users have never had it. I'm assuming a minimum level of knowledge with CERES tag, but for those of you who are unaware, a quick overview is that CERES tags are, I've got one right here. CERES tag's a livestock monitoring ear tag. It's direct to satellite, solar powered, so there's no towers or infrastructure or anything like that. It's essentially plug and play. In the early days, it was just a tracker, so it tracked where your animals go, and it still does that. But the platform moves very fast, and the technology moves very fast, which means the capability and the insights move very fast. So if you've sort of been more than 6 months since you last had a look, it'll be different again with the amount of stuff that it does. So these days, CERES tags monitor not just location, but a whole bunch of behaviors. And those behaviors tell us a lot of things about what's going on our farm. So the purpose of the few slides that we'll discuss today is to give you just a handful of examples of how you can use some CERES tag data to make informed or better informed decisions about livestock management with respect to carbon, soil, vegetation, biodiversity, and that sort of stuff. There's plenty more we could talk about at some other time, so you're welcome to get in touch with me, but I'm hoping that these handful of examples we've got should be right up your alley. Feel free to put any questions in the chat, and we'll try and cover all those, or if you can't get to them right now, feel free to email them through and we'll talk about that later. So if we move on to the first example, one of the things the tag does is, if you can picture for a moment a Excel spreadsheet. Now you don't see the Excel spreadsheet because the AgriProve software processes all this sort of stuff for you. But if you can imagine you've got a spreadsheet, and in that spreadsheet you've got several columns worth of different types of data. One of those data sources is feeding time, the number of minutes per day spent feeding. And another one is rumination time, number of minutes per day spent ruminating, and the same for walking. Now, if I have an animal that's feeding for 4 hours and ruminating for 20 hours, that tells me that the vegetation's like cardboard. This stuff's horrible. I can only eat for a little bit, and it's taken me a very long time to digest it. But if I'm grazing for 20 hours and ruminating for 4, that stuff tells me, that data's telling me that stuff's like ice cream. It's really good food. So that ratio between feeding and ruminating time is telling me something about pasture quality from the animal's point of view. That'll change over the year as pastures, come good and then hay off and all that sort of stuff. But if we think of that livestock behavioural data as a pasture quality index, or if we add walking times to that as a pasture quantity index, we can now have make some decisions around what we do with those animals. So as an example, these are just rough numbers, by the way. I'm not an accountant, but you get the idea, is that if I have something like an animal that's putting on 1 or 2 kilos a day, and I keep them out there for 30 days too long, or I bring them in 30 days early, I could be having an influence. I could be missing out on extra kilos of those animals. And if you do some rough sums around what an extra month one way or the other might mean to you, well, at $3 a kilo in a month and $1, 1.5 kilos a day over 100 head, well, that's roughly 13,000 bucks that I'm either missing out on or capturing on just 100 animals. So if that veg is haying off and I wait for them to get skinny before I do something, I've lost kilos and I've lost money. But if I'm using that pasture quality index to tell me when that hay's off, well, then I can move those animals or sell them or feed them or do something to them before I lose those kilos. So CERESTAG data in this case can be used as a pasture quality or quantity index to help make decisions and not lose or miss out on kilos, and that makes me money. And I don't have to wait 10 years to get that money. By getting that right over the next few months or the next season, I can get that return on my investment within a few months. And on some rough numbers down there, if I just use the tags for that purpose once on 100 head, well, that's $6,000. Or if I've got 300 head, that's 10 grand, or 46,000 bucks if I've got 1,000 head. So I'm not telling you going to make $1 million by Christmas, but you can see that these things start to add up. And if it only costs me, $7.5 grand to buy a box of tags, and I'm getting a return on that of 10 grand or 30 grand or 50 grand, well, a 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 is not a bad return. My payback time for that is relatively short. So that's an example. We put this up here because this is an example of how you use animal behavioral data to tell you something about pasture. And if you're using that pasture information, there's a way to monetize that or make money from it. On the next example, this is one of the more common ones that people sort of in the southeast will report, is that, you might have, say, 300 cows and maybe you've got 10 or 15 bulls or something, and people always put out a few extra bulls just in case one's not working or gets sick or whatever, and then the bulls fight and cause problems. Or you have a homosexual bull that keeps his harem safe from all the other bulls, and then they don't get in calf, and then I've missed out on a bunch of calves. So we have these issues with essentially excess number of bulls than what we need. And we do that because we're not quite sure how they're going to perform. Well, if I'm monitoring those bulls and monitoring their performance on a daily basis, I can essentially have the minimum number of bulls that I need, no more, and I can keep some on the bench as subs. And if I know in those first week or two of my my mating season that my bull's not performing, well, I can sub him out and swap him for another one. And I can make money on that because not only have I saved money buying bulls, but I've also made sure I've got the highest conception rates that I can because I'm only keeping the top performing bulls that are out there. So when you run some numbers like that, people might have 100 grand's worth of bulls in their paddock, even if you've only got 300 cows. And to tag 10 bulls might only cost you $3,000 or thereabouts, depending on who you buy it from. So I can save money quite quickly by monitoring the performance of those bulls. And there's some examples there in those last 3 dot points that if I would normally run 10 bulls, but I can cut that back to 8 or 6 and maybe spend more my money on other bulls, you can sort of see how that might return some dollars to your pocket in a very short space of time. I mean months, on the time to your payback. You're not waiting years for that kind of return. So if you're already thinking ahead, you might say to yourself, well, all right, well, if I'm monitoring my cattle, I can use those tags for a pasture quality quantity index, and I can use it for bulls. And now I'm getting more out of those tags. So we'll move on to the next example. In the next example, it's kind of a little bit of a, I want to say a weak example, but it's almost like a no-brainer. If I know where those animals are, it's going to take me less time to go and get them. So if you run some numbers of that, if I've got 1,000 cows in some pretty rough country and it takes me a month of spear trapping to get them, and that's, you know, one person of that, and then it takes me another few days in helicopter time and a bunch of people run around on motorbikes to try and get all those. And if I leave 50 cows behind because it's just very difficult to get them, I've got an opportunity there to try and reduce the costs of my mustering and also not miss any of my cows. This is a real example, by the way, from a CERES tag user out near Morven in Western Queensland. So as a hypothetical, if they're putting out 1,000 tags, spending a few $100,000 as their investment, I want to make sure I get that money back. Well, 1 month of spear trapping in one person and 2 days of helicopter time for 3 people, if that's my hypothetical, so it saves me half the time in people and helicopters, and then you put some numbers around how much that costs you, you're essentially saving, you know, close to 200 grand in that whole exercise, just time, helicopters, and cleaning up the cows that I wouldn't otherwise not have got, the cows and the calves. So the payback time for an example like that is not as immediate as it is for bulls or optimizing your mustering time. You might have to wait till the next mustering season, and then you might have to do it again the mustering season after that to squeeze more out of your tags. But you can see how that can stack up, and within a year or two, saving those costs and getting the extra cows that I would not have otherwise got can really start to bring me money and keep your bank manager happy because you know where all your assets are. In another example, I'm rushing through these, but I hope they sort of make sense. Use case number 4. This is somewhat sort of conceptual, and some of the big boys, like some of the largest cattle companies on earth, are thinking about these types of things. And for people who are already in the space of ACCUs and carbon markets and thinking about biodiversity markets or organic or these sorts of things, you're already thinking about what are some of the other ways I can value add to my business. In this case, these sorts of conceptual examples are around kind of credentials and market access. And you could use all sorts of data for this. But as an example, these dot points here, and these aren't fleshed out, but I just put them out there as sort of hypothetical use cases that might be of interest to you. One of the users with CERES tags are actually grazing cattle on offsets. If you're familiar with offsets, they usually kick all the cattle off, and you're not allowed any cattle on offsets because they're highly sensitive areas and they're set aside for biodiversity, and cattle shall never go there. But we've got users that are grazing cattle in offsets because they're able to physically monitor the time spent on that pasture and how much pasture is coming off that offset. So one of the pieces of data that CERES tag will give you is kilograms of dry matter consumed per day. So if I've got my 10 cows or 100 cows grazing in an offset, I'm actually recording or estimating the number of kilos consumed. And your regulator, may decide, well, we've reached the threshold, we can move them on. One of the uses is that you can get access to sensitive areas like offsets, or it might be stock routes or something else with a biodiversity covenant or something like that. Other opportunities is that you could create your own like animal welfare score or metric. You could use rumination time as a proxy for disease. And if you're familiar with some of the cattle diseases that are out there, rumination time might be up here, and as soon as I get sick, that'll crash. And then after a couple of days, it'll pick back up again. Now, the tag is not diagnosing the disease, but it's certainly telling you that that animal's unhappy and it's not ruminating. And you might find rumination time or a combination of other things could be a very useful indicator of animal welfare or disease or illness. And you could turn that into an animal welfare metric or some sort of score. And that could be used for value-added products or branded products going into a particular target market, or you might use it just as a sort of a labeling exercise through marketing and get an indirect benefit through that way. Some of the low-hanging fruit in that space is around EU deforestation-free beef. CERES tags are a great way to demonstrate that you're not grazing in those types of areas, and the data can just go straight to the regulator or straight to AgriProve, who can provide it to the regulator. Or it could be used for something like GAP, which is animal welfare, certified humane, that kind of stuff. And only very recently, CERES tag has acquired the ability to have what's called CERES authenticated, which is basically like the RSPCA tick or the Heart Australia tick. You would have a CERES authenticated tick that you're able to prove with data that what you say is going on is actually going on. The audit trail is not reliant on a survey where you just promise to have done these things, but you actually got real data demonstrating those things. And that's valuable to a lot of markets. And other options down there at the bottom, so things like sale yards, process of rejections. You can prove some stuff. And in fact, one of the clients that is doing this in these offsets, they're a fan of the phrase, "Don't trust us, we can prove it." So you might, if you're in that space, you might think, now I have individual level daily behavioral data for my cattle, where they are, what they're doing, and that information could be monetized to achieve certain credentials and access certain markets, which may be more or less profitable to you depending on your business. And I can tell you our biggest sort of vertically integrated beef producers are absolutely thinking about these things. In the last example, I think we've only got 5. I just wanted to reinforce that each of these examples that we've given have their own sort of monetary reward for going through the exercise or investing in a CERES tag. And if you only do just one of those things, well, then you'll make some money. But if you do more of those things with your tags, you'll make more money. So if I'm going to go to the effort of putting out, I don't know, 100 tags on my property, and I'm just using it to monitor my bulls, well, I'll get some benefit out of that. But you're already receiving the data. It's already coming in. So why not use that data for more than one purpose? And if you start to add those on top of each other, these things are cumulative. And if you get good at using the data in your CERES tags, you can quickly find that you can really start to get a great return on your investment by harnessing that information that's coming through. My frustration within CERES tag when we're sort of talking with beef producers is they'll be using some tags, and I might explain to them that you can do all of these things. They get very excited, and then they go and put out their tags and they just want to track their bull. And they're missing out on a lot of the other benefits. Another sort of metaphor or analogy is imagine spending $2,000 on an iPhone and then just using it to send text messages. When all of the apps on your iPhone can, I don't know, do internet banking, fly a drone, turn the lights on and off in your spa bath. You do all sorts of manner of things with your iPhone. But if you're just using it for text messages, you're not getting the value out of that. So in the same sense, CERES tags can do 100 tricks. And the more tricks you learn to do with that CERES tag, the more you're going to get out of that investment. Do we have any more? I'm not sure. So having given some sort of a little bit of detail on just a small number of examples, I'll leave this here just for a moment. Maybe do a screen grab or something, or take a picture with your phone. But what I would try and encourage you to do on this side is to think of the CERES tag platform in sort of 3 parts. One part is the data that the tag provides. And that's things like feeding times, ruminating times, location, temperature, all those sorts of things. The tag collects that information and sends that to AgriProve or a bunch of other software partners if you're using others as well. So the tag collects this data, sends it on. With that data, we can generate a whole bunch of different insights. And we've talked about a couple of those insights today, but you can see a whole bunch more that are there. And more are coming all the time as more and more essentially apps are developed for the CERES TAG platform. Now, what you get in terms of your insights largely depends on the software provider, AgriProve. AgriProve can't give you all those things, or probably don't want to give you all those things, but you might say, well, these things here are of interest to me, and you work with AgriProve and CERES TAG to get those insights out of your data. So they're the things, insights are almost the potential, the things you could do. Of those insights, not all of them are going to be relevant to you and your business. A live exporter with 40,000 head up in the Gulf of Carpentaria is not the same as a Wagyu stud in Armidale. So you're going to have different business needs, different markets, different things you're interested in. And so you might pick just a couple of those insights that are right up your alley. And you'll notice that others have got nothing to do with your business and are not going to make you any money. So what I would encourage you to do is think of that third part, which are the applications, which is how I turn those insights into money. And even if you picked just 2 or 3 or 4 of those things, based on the examples I've shown you before, you can really get a good return on your investment. So we're not going to be able to cover all of these today, but you can certainly talk to anybody within AgriProve about how you harness those insights. And essentially, well, with the purpose of the AgriProve Marketplace, if I just think specifically in that sort of carbon space for a minute, I generate all these ACCUs. What do I do with them? I can sell them to, I don't know, Santos, or I can sit there and hold on to them, or I can use those ACCUs that I've generated to purchase some gear and reinvest that back onto my property to generate further income. And so the wheel turns around, but it turns around with money spinning back out to you, not money spinning back out to somebody else. So in that sense, the purpose of the marketplace and having CERES TAG as one of those options means you can take those ACCUs basically for free or forward paying based on the ACCUs you're going to get and reinvest that money back into your farm to drive even further profit. And props to AgriProve, they're the first and only place that are actually doing this at the moment. So it's very innovative, great foresight. And I think as we start to see more of sort of more environmental interest in sustainability and, you know, land uses with multiple, like patches of land with multiple uses, you're going to see a lot more of this stuff in the future. So I hope that's given some food for thought and inspired a bit of questions, and be happy to talk more about any of those things at any time.
Thanks very much, Ben. No, that was great, very insightful, and I love a couple of those use cases. I think there's obviously some really good benefits to come from the data and the insights from the CERES TAG devices, and very sort of functional use cases. Yeah, now we're moving into our FAQ section of the session. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, yeah, raise your hand or unmute, and happy to throw it to the floor. If you've got questions for Ben regarding those use cases, we can go back through them. Looks like we do have a hand up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Yeah, it's Steve Healy here. Yeah, I just got a question with the CERES TAG in relation to the government connectivity program or funding. Is there a linkage there that it can be used?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of first-time CERES TAG users got their CERES tags through previous government grants that were about on-farm technology. I couldn't tell you what the current eligibility criteria are for those existing grant programs and the future ones that are coming out, but I can tell you that a lot of our current customers who sort of dipped their toe with CERES tags in the first place are looking at exactly those grant programs again to try and get more. What I will, and I don't want to discourage anybody from using those, of course, you know, the more the better, but what I will say is often, having applied for goodness knows how many grants in the past in a previous life, often they will not provide enough money like in the grant for you to do the things that you actually need to do. So if they only give you $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, that might not actually meet your needs for what you want to achieve. That's one thought. And the other thought I've got three thoughts. The second thought is the benefits, like the financial returns available through using CERES tags and captivating that data, are available to you now, independent of any government grant. So you don't necessarily need to wait for the government to give you 10 grand to go do it when you could already make some money. I mean, we always like to get free stuff, don't get me wrong, but there's benefits without it. And then the third is AgriProve are already essentially offering that through your future ACCUs. So without having to go through the hassle of grant programs, you can already get CERES tags purchased with your ACCUs through your AgriProve relationship already. So that's not to discourage you, but just to say, yeah, look, by all means look into it, but there are other options that you can utilize straight away.
Okay, thanks. But yeah, it might be a suggestion of the CERES tag to facilitate information about it for people who are hesitant. I've got some contacts who are sort of semi-interested and not as enthusiastic as I am, and that might be a tipping point.
Yeah, one of the things that didn't work so well, and this is coming from when I was a user of CERES tags and using grant programs to get that, is a lot of the sort of first timers, they would get a couple of boxes of tags with their grant, because that's all the grant would kind of allow them to do, and then they divvied it up amongst people, and so people only got 1 or 2 tags or 3 tags or 5 tags or something like that. And if you think of those use cases that I had out there before, 1 or 2 tags is not really going to tell you anything. You know, if I've got 3,000 head of cattle and I've got 2 tags out there, it's not really giving me any useful information. So the experience of people who've used the grant programs before to purchase their tags has been that they don't give you enough cash in your grant in order to get the benefits of using the tags, which is why opportunities like AgriProve's Marketplace really do make it possible to utilize it to their full potential. But it's a great question, and I think the short answer is yes. Look into those programs, because they have been utilized. You could use those programs in the past to purchase CERES tags.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks for your question, Steve. Just while we're waiting to see if there's any others come through in the chat, or if anyone has another question, just chuck your hand up using the raise function at the top of your screen. So just some sort of preloaded questions just that we do get a lot at AgriProve. So basically, can anyone use the AgriProve platform? Simple answer is yes. Anyone can jump into the platform, create an account. You don't have to have a soil carbon project initially, and you can use some of those features that we ran through earlier in the session. Does it cost anything to do an emissions assessment? No, there's no costs, just your time. So there's obviously levels to that emissions assessment and the calculations there. So just if you're looking for a high level insight into how your farm's tracking emissions wise, it can take sort of 5-10 minutes. If you're looking at doing a GAF level emissions calculation and getting in a GAF level number, it can sort of be more like 30-40 minutes and entering all that information in. Again, yeah, that's sort of that next question. And then can AgriProve connect me with buyers that will pay a premium for my product? Not at this stage, but we are working on this and hope to launch something sometime next year. So is there, just looking at the chat, doesn't look like there's been anything come through just yet. Oh, no, we have had one come through.
So the question about sheep, in my former life as wildlife researcher at USQ, we put tags on every animal that had an ear big enough. And if it didn't have an ear big enough, we put a collar on it and clipped the tag to the collar. So CERES tags have been used on things as small as house cats and as large as African elephants and everything in between. During that, those years of research, I had some monumental failures. So I wouldn't encourage anybody to put them on a leopard in Nepal, and I wouldn't encourage anybody to put CERES tags on baboons in South Africa. But a lot of people do use them for sheep. and cattle, livestock animals essentially, bison and buffalo, stuff like that. Now, I will put a caveat on that though. CERES tags are giving you several types of data. You're getting location-based data, GPS movements and stuff like that. You're getting behavioral data, minutes spent feeding, ruminating, things like that. A lot of the value in CERES tags, if you think of that iPhone example, comes from the behavioral data, not just the location data. Location's important for a lot of things, don't get me wrong, just like the phone call is on your phone. But a lot of the value comes from the behavioral data. All of that behavioral data is calibrated to cattle. So if I take a CERES tag and put it on a sheep, the GPS works fine, and the tag will give you a dry matter intake estimate or a rumination time estimate, but that's a totally bogus number when it's on something other than a cow. So the value of a CERES tag on anything other than a cow is just the movement data that you're getting, the location information. Now, depending on your use case, that might be all you're interested in. And there's certainly plenty of good reasons to use just a movement tag. But you do miss out on that other kind of stuff as soon as you've not put it on, as soon as you put it on something other than a cow. At the back end, which is sort of not what we're here to talk about today, but CERES tags are always improving. We've got developers all around the world building new algorithms and new apps for CERES tags. And there's people that are building algorithms for things other than cows, but they're not there yet. So it'll be in the future when those other sorts of insights are possible for things like sheep and other animals. I hope that answers that question. I'm not quite sure what the question around being a commercial partner is intended, if that's for AgriProve or CERES tag or what that one means, but I'll allow Daniel to sort of address those.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, and thanks for the question there, Amanda, about sheep. Yeah, it looks like there's a question there in regards to the marketplace partnerships. Look, we are taking expressions of interest for products and services for the marketplace, and yeah, talking to providers. So if that's sort of what that question's in relation to, yeah, definitely. We will submit just let us know in the chat, an email, the email that Harry's just dropped in the chat there, and we can sort of have a discussion around that if that's what that's referring to. Looking at it, no other questions come through. Just feel free to throw any more questions in as we're moving through, but as we're sort of moving to the end of the webinar, if there's no other questions, I'll just shift forward. And I know I mentioned it at the start of the webinar, just as a thank you offer, and for everyone who's attended today's webinar, really appreciate your time today. For attending, we're offering a 10% off the CERES Ranch Starter Kit for anyone in attendance. So basically, if you there are terms and conditions that apply, but definitely get in touch if you're interested in taking up this offer. Get in touch with the AgriProve team, the guys on the line, and we can work through getting this offer actioned for your farm. I see there's some typing happening, just leaving the last little minute for any last minute questions, if anyone's got anything.
I'd just add a thank you to AgriProve, and hope that it was useful. And again, congratulations to AgriProve for launching their marketplace and starting on this. I think it's very innovative and good foresight, and I look forward to seeing how that grows.
No, thanks very much, Ben, and obviously appreciate your time and expertise as well. I know you're a busy man, so it's great to get an hour of your time to be able to run through some of those scenarios and provide some value to the landholders on the line today. So again, thank you very much for your time and for everyone's time that's joined today. If there's no, doesn't look like there's any other questions. We can wrap it up there. But again, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you at the next webinar.